Normally, I want to share news. It's a fun topic, so interesting, fascinating. It makes my work so enjoyable. So many people love it. But at the same time, the government of the United States um, has done this horrendous thing, in my opinion, in canceling so many student visas and status that I think I want to talk about it. We're going to talk about what's happening, kind of just spread information, and see what you guys think about it. So let's start. The news for today that's happening around, and you actually can't really even see this online, is the fact that many students are getting their visas and their student statuses terminated. These international students. And you might be asking, I saw some of that on the news. It's not a big deal. They were anti Semitic or they've been protesting. They deserve to get their student statuses canceled. They are supposed to be here to study, but they're disrupting the civic life of the United States. They do not deserve their student status. Rightly or wrongly, okay, that's actually not what I'm talking about. What I am actually infuriated over is the fact that there's this blanket system that seems to be taking place right now, probably done by an AI, that is just blanket canceling every international student's SEVIS, their international student status, so they have to leave the country, and their visa. And when I'm saying blanket, I'm talking about they're looking at the past potentially 10, 15 years. And if you just have a traffic ticket arrest record, you're not convicted, there's nothing wrong, but because there's some smear on your life in the United States that it is not super clean, your entire stay in the United States is getting revoked and you're getting kicked out and you have to reapply. That is what we're seeing, and that's the thing, that it's not widely available online, but because we are the first line, like the moment clients get an email, get a text, and not a scam, by the way, right, but it obviously looks like a scam when you get an email saying, hey, your international students have been terminated, you need to leave the United States immediately, contact your consulate. Like, this cannot be real. Like, I didn't do anything, no conviction, I'm an honor student, I'm studying at an Ivy League, how can my visa be canceled? Everything gets disrupted. They have to quit class, they have to leave school, they have to end their apartment, they have to let other people take care of their dogs and cats, they have to say goodbye to everyone because they might never come back. Think about the devastation people have to go through when they're studying abroad and suddenly they get something that looks 100% like a scam text or email, but it's real. And it's one thing if they chose to voluntarily disrupt the United States, disrupt the school, protest, they are willing to be a martyr for the cause. And the United States government cancels their visa accordingly. That's one issue which is already very controversial, and that is not what I'm talking about. It's another issue if, yes, you have a domestic violence, yes, you've been caught cheating, yes, you've been caught defrauding, the school terminates your status, you failed out of school, the school terminates your status, you failed out of school and the consulate terminates your status, you you got a DUI, it's a misdemeanor. You have a felony, you have severe shoplifting, grand theft auto. You have all of these things. And then the consulate and the school and the United States government cancels you because you have a conviction on your record. But for a traffic ticket, for a small, insignificant offense that you just have to go through community service and everything is canceled, where do you draw the line, right? Where are the adults in the room in making that decision? Somebody must have set that AI policy saying, okay, any smear, we're going to cancel their status. Is that the right choice? Maybe couldn't you have drawn the line at conviction? Couldn't you have drawn the line at least misdemeanor, right? You have been convicted by a state or federal court on a misdemeanor. Your visa is canceled, and now you're invited to go back to the consulate to review your situation. That nobody can complain about. That I think is fair. That I think will save maybe 95, 98% of international students. But when you draw the line at just mere like like just have an arrest record, somebody called something on you and you've been accused of something and suddenly your status gets terminated, that is cruel. That sends a chilling effect on everyone across the globe. Who would want to study abroad in the United States if one random person makes an accusation against you and somehow your entire student status is forfeited? Think about the investment of these international students. They take tests, they get accepted to a US school, they're paying the highest tuition out of anybody else in America, and they have to leave their family, leave their social network, they cannot work. They are just here studying, contributing to the US economy. And then a random accusation, a traffic fine because they couldn't read the sign. And, are there bad signs by cities? Yes, there are. They got a parking ticket and somehow their status gets terminated. That is insane. But yet we're seeing this happen. So this week, I've been dealing with that. Many clients calling us up, doing consultations because something on their record from 7 years ago, from 10 years ago, popped up and they get this email that is now legitimate and they have to leave the country and they're figuring out why, right? And how to solve this problem. And there's really only three solutions. You file a reinstatement with USCIS, which could take over a year. They could go back to the consulate, get a new visa, and come back. Or go to the CBP, but that's assuming if their visa didn't get denied. And in many cases, their visas are denied and their service is denied, so they can't even go to the CBP officer to get it fixed within 1 day. So their choices: stay here in the U.S., file an appeal, essentially a reinstatement case with USCIS, or they go back to the consulate. And if the consulate, who's directly controlled by the government, the executive branch, if they just straight up say no, then 2, 3, 5, 8 years of their investment in the United States all poof gone, right? Think about it. If they are like a fifth-year PhD student or they're a junior in college, they already have all the credits, but they're just missing a few classes. Think about the predicament some of these people are in. You might say, if it really is a traffic fine, if it really is something small 7 years ago, for sure they will get a new visa and come back in. Not that big of a deal. This is just an unfortunate circumstance that we're trying to solve. We're trying to catch the bad people. So unfortunately, some of these people have to just fly back to their home country, go to the consulate, get a new visa, and come back. It's an inconvenience. You make it sound like it's going to a DMV and waiting in line for 40 minutes, just so you understand the gravity of the decision that some of these students have to make. They have to stop class, stop the lease, stop everything in their life here. They have to schedule an appointment with a consulate, sometimes taking 3 months or 6 months before they can get an interview. Given the US political climate and what President Trump is saying and what the consulates are doing, you're assessing your chances, and maybe the assessment is less than 50% chance the consulate is going to approve your visa should you leave, because that's just the denial rate abroad. Not everybody who applies for a student visa gets approved. On top of that, the small fortune you have to spend. You fly back to your home country. Not everybody lives in Canada and Mexico. Some people live in Japan. Some people live across the country. So flying back, a couple $1,000s. Some people are locked into year-long leases in the U.S., so they're paying a lease in the U.S., they're paying for car insurance, they're paying for everything here. They fly back, they cannot come back until 3 months, 6 months later. They already paid tuition at the university in which there's no refund, and then they sacrifice that entire semester. They come back for the next semester, and they have to pay another tuition. We're talking easily $50,000 or more to fix a small mistake. $50,000 is no small chunk of change, even in the United States. It is for many people an entire year's salary. But when you think of in other countries, many other countries, their entire year-long salary abroad might be only $10,000 or $20,000. So sacrificing 50,000 to fix a small inconvenience is telling somebody this is like half a decade's worth of your life saving, going puffing smoke because several years ago you had a small accusation. Is that fair? Is this what the United States stand for? Is this what the United States wants to project? Now, again, you might say this is exactly the kind of United States that we want. We want people to realize that studying here in the United States as an international student, having a visa is a privilege. Do not take it for granted. I get that. But again, where do you draw the line? Couldn't you have just drawn the line at conviction and misdemeanor? You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of unthinking that is bothering me and bothering the immigration community and lawyers at large, you know? And this is not the first time, right? A couple months ago, the White House already issued the executive order of canceling humanitarian parole, blanket cancellation, right? This was the power of all customs officer to use their best judgment as a professional to let certain individuals in for a specific purpose. Once you strip that power away from all officers, suddenly so many important life-saving situations couldn't have been executed just because of politics. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is infuriating that these policies are being rolled out. Hopefully, this doesn't continue. Hopefully, this gets corrected immediately. Hopefully, consulates abroad, USCIS, CBP officers on the ground reviewing individual client situations will make the righteous and understanding approvals, granting the visa, letting the students to come back. But if the consulates do not approve the visas, if the CBP officers do not approve these humanitarian paroles or these entry stamps so that they can come back in, if USCIS does not approve these reinstatements, if this policy doesn't change and student statuses and student visas continuously get denied for just even an accusation, the future of America in the sense of these international students and all the benefits they bring is going to be a very different landscape. All the benefits that international students bring to universities, to local college towns, to research, to development, to the job, to workforce. Maybe it's a red state, blue state issue. Maybe red states receive a lot less international students and they don't see the benefit. Maybe blue states have taken them for granted. I don't know what the situation is, but for the past better part of this half century, the United States have flourished because of the strong international students that have come into the country at the college level, at the master's degree, at the graduate level, and at the PhD, and then funneling into exceptional researchers and H-1B that pioneered and pushed the United States to the excellence that we have today. You stop that flow at the very beginning. You prevent people from coming and wanting to come to study here in the United States. You prevent people from wanting to work in the United States. If this continues, the next 50 years and 100 years is going to be extremely chilling. And just talking about education, right? It's widely recognized, even by the president, that the United States is very low ranked on its education. There's a lot of reasons for that, okay? We're not going to get into that. But how do you put two to two together? How can the United States be an amazingly smart and capable country with powerful workforce that is leading tech? Is it just because they outsource everything to other countries? No, because they have a stellar, educated, and capable workforce. But if we're so low ranked on education and we're so good with such a strong workforce, How do you bridge that if this was an LSAT question? Well, the solution has been these international students who come into the United States, who study, who get the H-1B, who study here for these companies. These are the individuals who are raised abroad, K through 12, and they come to the United States and study at our universities, paying the highest tuition, and they have the best grades, and then they graduate, and then they get a job, and then they work. Just so people understand that, for somebody who is a foreigner on H-1B to be accepted into a job, they can't just be 10% better. They can't be just 20% better. They need to be almost 80% better. So if you look to your left, look to your right, if you are working in a company and you're sitting next to somebody who is on H-1B status or who is going through the perm process, green card process, there is a high chance that if you compare yourself to them, they are probably a good 50% more productive, efficient than you are. Salary to salary, apple to apple comparison, obviously. Why? Because why would a company spend a fortune to go through the immigration process and have them on their payroll when they're scrutinized and they have to pay more and everything? It's because of their stellar performance. So, majority of the United States, low ranked in education, yet we have all these amazing international students come into our country, and then when they graduate, they get the jobs that nobody else can do, or they're performing at twice the level that most people can perform at. And that's how these companies thrive. You cancel out these international students, what will that do to our corporations and our competitive edge? I don't know. I just don't know. But I could tell you, if this continues any longer, if international students come into the US, pay 1, 2, 3 year tuition, and for a random abstract policy, their entire status gets canceled. When they leave, the anger and the frustration that they will have towards the United States will send chills down the spine and reverberate through generations. I can imagine that. The parents of these international students, many of which are high-end executives who are sending their children to the United States to get the best education, they will be furious with the United States. So you are essentially the United States in one fell swoop making enemies with all nations and their elites because you screwed their children over. Again, because you drew the line at an unreasonable place. What kind of law-abiding democracy do we live in? That's straight up saying we have a double standard. So, all that happened this past week, and it's not even over yet, right? Tariff, that's a whole nother story, but I'm in the field of immigration, and this is what's bothering me. But I guess I'll open up to questions now, if there's any.
We got one question. How to file for reinstatement after OPT ends?
How do you file for reinstatement after OPT ends? So, if your OPT ends, your status is over, right? So you don't get reinstated unless what you mean is during your OPT status, something happens and your OPT gets canceled, and now you want to go back to a student status. So if that's the situation, it's just like a ordinary reinstatement. If this happened during your normal schooling, OPT, same thing. You will need to get a new I-20. You'll need to get a school to support you to file for that reinstatement. Now, you might say, but I'm already on OPT. I'm already working. Why would the school give me an I-20? You're right. The school won't. So basically, if something happened during your working years as an international student and you lose your status, you basically have to go back to school and then file for reinstatement.